Hello and welcome. Welcome, everybody. Wow, it's great to be back, actually. We've not done one of these for 5 months now. Can you believe that?
Wow.
It's gone quick.
Amazing.
And we've had a huge number of people joining the trumpet group as well. So hello to everybody, and thanks for joining us too.
Yeah, it's great that so many people are now part of this group. And I must say that I personally really appreciate all the support and all the little messages that I get of, keep on going and do this and do that. And it's great that even in this time when people are unable to get to gigs, that there's still that kind of support going on. It's really, really important to me. So thanks to all of you for that.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. So tonight we're going to really talk about the past year, a bit of reflection on the past year. So I don't think any of us would have thought this time last year that we'd still be locked down now. We're going to talk about what you've been up to and what's kept you busy, how you've kept motivated, and also talk a little bit about the new CD, which I'm very excited to hear about.
Yeah.
So let's go back to sort of 12 months ago. And the last time I saw you was 14th of March at Cadogan Hall with Claire Teal, and you were playing in the orchestra there.
That's right. Yeah. I remember that gig, obviously, not only because it was, the last real gig that I did, but it was also a fantastic gig, as Claire's gigs always are. She's an incredible force for music and everything that we do. And, I'm glad to see that she's now not on BBC Radio 2, but she's at Jazz FM on a Sunday night. I think it's at 7:00. So anybody that loves Claire and what she does, who can't love Claire, make sure you tune in there at 7:00.
Yeah.
So on a Sunday night, Jazz FM.
Yeah.
So the gig was at Cadogan Hall, like you say, and it was Claire's. She runs like a small big band. There's a couple of trumpets, and I was playing in that, and Deanne, you were there, and little did we know what was round the corner. But because that was like the start of the last year, really, as far as what's been going on since COVID, I thought that maybe we'd start off with having a bit of Claire Teal to sing for us. And this is something which appeared at the proms with our beloved John Wilson Orchestra back in 2011, I think it was. And Claire appeared in this prom, and for my money, is one of the greatest singers that we actually had on the proms with the John Wilson Orchestra.
Once I had a secret love that lived within the heart of me. All too soon my secret love became impatient to be free. So I told a friendly star the way that dreamers often do, just how wonderful you are, and why I'm so in love with you. Now my heart's an open door, and my secret love's no secret anymore. dears. At last my heart's an open door, and my secret love's no secret
Wow, she can
just
sing,
like-
can't she? What
You certainly can.
What a singer. And, you know, I don't know anybody knows this, but Doris Day is one of Claire's favourite singers. And I think Claire has spoken to Doris Day on quite more than once, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that first gig, that last gig that we were doing, we were at with Claire, and you were there. You know, like you say, it's kind of etched in my memory because it was the last date. Not only because of that, but the 14th of March is the day before my dad's birthday. His birthday was the 15th of March, and the very next day after there, I drove up to North Staffordshire, where I'm from, where my dad was in a care home up there, and visited him. And we had a special little side entrance so we could go in because, you know, COVID was around the corner.
Yeah.
And I think that evening, actually, the home went into lockdown, but certainly in the afternoon, a small gathering went in through a side door to a room and surprised my dad for his 90th birthday. And that was a real joyous occasion, and I'm so glad that it took place. Because as many of you know, 3 weeks later, sadly, he passed away of COVID. The day after that, I drove back that evening to London, and the day after, I went into the West End to go and do what I thought I was going to be doing, which was a performance at the theatre, depping for great friend, colleague Pat White, in the show Book of Mormon. Fantastic, funny show. Anyway, I got into the West End. I drove in, and I thought it seems a bit quiet here, and I could park very easily. There was nobody really about, even then. This is the 16th of March, and went to the stage door, my instruments ready to, you know, go and set up. And the stage doorkeeper said, "Oh, the show isn't on tonight. Most of the theatres in London are going dark because of this COVID. We're going into like a lockdown." So that was the last bit of work that I tried to do. And, you know, of course, it was a shot. I then got a call from Andy Gathercole. Of course, quite a few people know Andy is, one of my cohorts at the John Wilson Orchestra. And Andy, at that time, was doing Les Mis. And he phoned me up and he said, the show's not on. You're not doing Book of Mormon tonight, are you? And I said, well, no, I'm just about to get in the car and go home. He said, fancy a quick pint? So we went and had a pint, and I think we were the only two in the pub, actually.
Yeah.
But so that was the start of it. And then the couple of days later, I was supposed to be going up to the Conservatoire of Scotland, Music Conservatoire. I've got a post up there where I go and coach the wonderful brass players they have. And sadly, that was called off. And in fact, we've just arranged the first week in March, which is all going to be online this year in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm going to be seeing them. But last year, of course, it was missed.
Yeah. So obviously when when it all happened and we all went into lockdown, were the conversations about putting things back or, with the musicals or gigs, or did it just sort of, it all just cancelled and left?
It was cancelled and left, but we all thought that, maybe in a few weeks' time we'd all be back again. Yeah. And it was a temporary thing. If somebody said to me that we'd be sat here tonight and we'd still be in some kind of lockdown, I would have doubted it very much, but
Mm.
yeah, I mean, for all musicians and actors, and you think about all the theaters, all the people who work behind the
Yeah.
scenes, the lighting, the people in the ticket offices, all these people that it's affected. It's a massive business which has just been pulled overnight, really.
Yeah.
And there's so many people who we know and love, amazing musicians, amazing actors, that are completely scuppered because they've had no help from our wonderful government. Um, I know a lot of people who've been working as builders,
Yeah.
as plasterers, as decorators, as humping parcels around everywhere.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to them, really.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky that I haven't had to do that for various reasons. But of course, the younger people are not sort of as far down the line as I am with stuff, and I've managed to survive with
Yeah.
with very little work. But we'll talk
So
about that in a bit anyway.
we will. Yeah. So how easy? I mean, I know you've done sort of various things online, and we're going to explore that a lot more as we go through our chat tonight. But how easy was it to move some things online, like teaching or recording? Did you have to buy lots of new equipment and things, or how did that work?
Well, as far as the online teaching was concerned, I'd kind of been doing it for a few years. I remember my great friend Derek Lawton, who I'm sure a lot of the people watching will know Derek. Wonderful guy, great trumpet player, incredible artist, designer. Did all the design for lots of my projects. Amazing guy and a great friend. But yeah, why have I started talking about him? Oh yeah, he encouraged me a few years back. He said, "How about sort of teaching online? This is going to be a thing, the future." I'm talking probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we kind of set up a thing on my website. It was called Lovatt Live, and
Okay.
people could get in touch, and it was quite successful. And people from all around the world got in touch. I gave people lessons in Hong Kong, in Australia, in America.
You
So
frozen, Mike.
different times of the. Are you there? Is everybody there?
Yeah, you froze a bit there.
Okay, must be the signal. Yeah, so I was teaching years ago, really, with that medium using Zoom or Skype. Of course, everybody knows what Zoom is now. Again, if you'd asked me,
Yeah.
a year ago, what's Zoom? People go, Zoom? What's Zoom? I don't know what Zoom is. It's we all take it for granted nowadays. But yeah, so I was teaching like that. So equipment-wise, I just used, my computer with its built-in camera and mic and everything. But as time's gone on, because of my ability to now record at home, I started off with a fantastic present from my wife of a Neumann microphone. It's for any of the geeks out there. It's a Neumann U87, and I started to record with that with a interface, an M audio interface, and just using GarageBand, and that was a few years ago as well. But of course, since lockdown, I've sort of got into the gear a bit more, and because I've got a fantastic mic, I've got a better interface, and I've got a new computer which is just for recording all my recording projects, which I use every day. And so I come into my music room here and teach, and Monday to Friday I try and treat it like I'm going to work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I come into here and I'll do a recording, or I'll have my students at the Royal Academy of Music. And online teaching is difficult. It's difficult to get across the enthusiasm. It's difficult to get across the sound for me.
Yeah.
To the students, and also for the students to get across their sound to me. And of course, that's the most important thing. And Zoom is not really set up for music. It's for meetings. So when somebody plays a musical instrument, you have this thing where the sound goes, and all closes down. So it has been challenging, but I think everybody's been adapting, and Students are getting new gear. You know, they got. I had one of my students last week, and he said, "I've got a new mic, and I'm doing this." And you know, we've got a platform set up at the academy now, so I can upload some tracks of me playing, and then minus a part, and then they add their part to it. So it's a way of us playing together. So, like in all walks of life, everybody's been adapting, but I think it's been particularly challenging for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I suppose that you know, as it's gone on, you've got to use different programs and things, and bought new equipment to help do what you do.
Yes, absolutely. Just while we're in a bit of a lull, there's a few people who've checked in that I'd like to give a shout out to. One, of course, is our great friend Nicola. Nicola,
Oh,
yeah,
hi, Nick.
She's had a bit of a bad time recently, so sending you lots of love and hugs, Nicola. And we've got a great trumpet player we might see on a clip with me a bit later on, Ben Beavis. Hi, Ben. And also a lovely friend of Anne and I, which is Louise Sinnott, Louise Coleman, who's watching. And so, hi, Louise.
Hi, Louise. Welcome.
And there's a few other people. We've got somebody in Berlin watching, Michael Gerhardt in Berlin. We've got Dave Smith in Florida watching. So we're all over the place. And Kevin Wiles said, "What a voice Claire Teal has." So that's nice.
Yes, indeed.
And of course, we've got my sister Sarah watching.
Oh, hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Grace Harmon, who's a fantastic up-and-coming trumpet player who's currently studying in her first year at the Royal Northern College of Music. We've got Paul Mace, who's my great friend from the Midlands. We all know Paul. And also we've got a fantastic young trumpet player who is the lead trumpet player in the Washington Army Big Band. His name's Joshua Kaufman.
Wow.
He loves the John Wilson Orchestra, but he's an incredible trumpet player. So hi to you, Josh.
Yeah, hi, Josh.
Those are a few people who are watching. Anne's just passing me some comments because we can't actually see the comments.
No.
But keep on commenting because we'll look at them all afterwards.
We'll do, yeah, definitely. We were talking about sort of what equipment you've got, and so one of the first questions here is from Philip Beadle. He says, you use those, I presume, at the moment now.
Sorry, Deanne, I just lost you then. Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, question from Philip Beadle. Do you use any other trumpets than the Smith Watkins?
Well, funnily enough, I don't. I've been playing on Smith Watkins since 1994. And first of all, I played on the Smith Watkins trumpet Derek Watkins designed. And they were born out of the original Boozy and Hawkes studio trumpet, which Derek helped design along with a fantastic physician trumpet designer, Richard Smith, who worked for Boozy and Hawkes. And he designed this fantastic studio model trumpet. He also designed the famous Sovereign range of cornets, which most of the brass band players played on at one time. When he left Boozy and Hawkes, I think it was 1985, he set about designing a trumpet which was under his own name, Richard Smith, with Derek Watkins. Everybody knows who Derek is, of course. Amazing, wonderful trumpet player that we were lucky enough to experience. And his legacy is incredible too. And he designed a trumpet with Richard, and they set up a company called Smith Watkins. It was a kind of bit of a game with the Smith and Weston name. And so I think it was about probably about 5 or 6 years after that, I was working with Derek on the Des O'Connor show TV series. And at that time I was playing a Benge. So any trumpet players out there will know what a Benge is. It was an MLP 3x MLP silver plate, and it was a great trumpet, and I loved it. But when I worked with Derek, he just said, "Oh, I've got a spare one here. Have a go on this." So I played the trumpet next to him, and of course, it felt fantastic, and I was just like, right, okay, I need to go and get one of these trumpets. So I went up to Richard's in North London. He lived at the time, and I tried a few trumpets out, and I took this new Smith Watkins trumpet into the pit of a show I was doing. I was doing Fame at the time, and I took it into the show, and the trombone player next to me said, "Oh, that doesn't sound as good as your Benj, that." And I said, "Oh, I'm just, I'm trying it out. It feels really good. That's the main thing. I'm sure the sound will come eventually." Anyway, a few weeks later, he said, "Keep it. It sounds fantastic." So I started playing those trumpets, and eventually Richard sort of started to ask me to get involved with any tests or experiments. Him being a scientist, experiments on sound and vibration, and how the different metals affect the blow, and bore sizes and valves and all the rest of it. So I got heavily involved with it, and I had a few more Smith Watkins, the same Derek Watkins model. And then sadly, when Derek passed away, Richard sort of got in touch with me and said, was I interested in designing a new trumpet with him? And so we came up with something which is different to the previous model, but it was all the things that, over the years I'd asked people who played on Smith Watkins, well, what would you change about this, and what would you change about that? And I sort of collated all those ideas and tried to put them into one model. So we came up with this one, which is the ML Smith Watkins. Well, you can see on the bell there, it's got little ML. Well, you've seen this before, Deanne. You haven't played it, but you've held it, haven't you?
I was allowed to hold it, but you wouldn't let me have the mouthpiece in.
So this is for the trumpet geeks out there. It's a 460 bore with about a 37 bark size bell on it, heavyweight bell, and it's got a lead pipe, the same kind of Smith Watkins designed lead pipe, but a slightly different size just to balance up with the bell. So I've got like 6 of these, which I use, but this is the one I use most of the time. I've got a silver plated one. I've got 2 other gold ones.
I was just going to ask about the gold then. It's not just you being flashy.
No, the gold affects, because different thicknesses of metal,
right,
affect the sound. So the gold plate does affect the sound. I think you get a brilliance, but you can get a warm quality as well if you back off it a bit. Silver trumpets tend to be brighter sounding, but I think with a gold plate you get a bit more depth of sound. Well, one is able to do that. It's still the player that has to do it. Maybe it's all in my head. And maybe it goes back to that first picture on an album I saw with Eddie Calvert, the man with the golden trumpet, when I was, 8 years old, just going to my mum, "Can you buy that record for me?" It might be that. Numbers as well. In fact, a Christmas show which was streamed on live with the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. And here's a little video of Christine, who's the band leader, plus myself in the trumpet section, and also I'll think of the singer's name. Sarah Eden, wonderful singer. Sarah Eden is singing as well. So let's have a little blast of this. Here we go.
If they asked me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look.
I could write a preface of how we met, that the world would never forget, and the simple reason for the plot is just to tell them that I love you a lot. And the world discovers as our book ends how to make 2 lovers or friends. And the simple reason for the plot is just to tell them that I love you a lot.
And the world discovers as our book ends how to make two lovers, how to make two lovers our friends. It's so great to be friends.
Yeah, so
muting and unmuting, isn't it? You're not used to it.
getting used to it. Yeah, so that's the wonderful Sid Lawrence Orchestra. You know, the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. The reason I played that is because the Sid Lawrence Orchestra was the thing that when I was younger that really inspired me to become a professional musician. Mum and Dad took me to hear them at Trentham Gardens Ballroom. In fact, Chris then in those days he was the lead trombone player in the band. So on that very first night, I remember in the break when everybody's having their chicken and chips in a basket, gingerly going up to Chris and asking him for his autograph. So I don't know whether Chris will be watching, but anyway, thanks for that, Chris, and thanks for all the inspiration over the years. Wonderful.
Links in really to a question we've had from Lynn Cottrell-Tandy, who asked who inspired you in your younger days. Who did you listen to? So.
Yeah, well, that was the first thing, the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, and there's a wonderful lead trumpet player, sadly no longer with us, called Freddie Staff, who I loved the way that he played. He had a very individual style. He tried to play in the kind of Harry James way. He was very flamboyant with his vibrato and all those things, but he really, led the trumpets, and that was something which really got me into that kind of way of playing really tight and making people bounce off you when you play. That was something that really grabbed me. And then I kind of moved on from the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, whilst still listening to them, but I moved on to the Ted Heath Orchestra. And at this point, I'd just like to say that I was very sorry recently to hear of the passing of the great Eddie Blair, who, in my mind, one of the greatest jazz trumpet players we've ever had in the UK. Instantly recognizable when he played a solo, and wonderful player in the session world for years. Any programs that had Ronnie Hazlehurst as a musical director would normally have two trumpet players who are wonderful and one who's still very much with us, and that's the great Tony Fisher. And Eddie was normally there with Tony. They were like a little team together. So rest in peace, Eddie, and hi to Tony if Tony's watching. So, so the Ted Heath Band, wonderful band. And of course, the great Bobby Pratt and Bert Ezard. And I got into those wonderful duets that Johnny Keating arranged for them. And if Josh is still watching, Josh, we're going to do one of those duets together one day. Not online, but for real. So we might even get one written specially for us by, of course, the wonderful Colin Skinner. We'll see what happens. Yeah,
that would be brilliant.
That would be good. Yeah,
it would. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, and then also from the Ted Heath Band, but from the earlier Ted Heath Band, I got into Kenny Baker, who has always been a great inspiration. Wonderful Kenny Baker, who some of the listeners, viewers might know from playing the trumpet in. It wasn't that lady in Genevieve, the film, who played the trumpet solo at all. It was Kenny Baker. And of course, Kenny was part of the band at Elstree that played on the Muppet Show. So you hear Kenny when the Muppet Show has ever played. It's him playing the unless you watch a John Lewis advert, then you might hear me playing it.
Oh, right.
So that's something that happened in the when we were allowed to. Well, we're allowed to go into studios now, but one of the studio sessions in London, which I did during the last year, was actually that particular, we call them jingles, but a TV ad for John Lewis. Yeah. So, and of course, anybody that knows the sort of saxophone at the end, that was played by the lovely Claire McInerney. Anybody that, I'm sure there's lots of people out there that know Claire. A little shout out for her. And we got some other people watching. I'd like to.
Okay. Yep.
I'd like to shout out to Tony Dixon, who's a wonderful lead trumpet player, normally with the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. So I was stepping into his shoes, which is it's not easy. He's a fantastic trumpet player. So hi, Tony. Marie Cullen, who's in Ireland, wonderful fan, Marie, and another great trumpet player. An old friend, Andy Cuss. Hi, Andy. And also a lovely friend who used to be a neighbour of ours. In fact, the whole family. Hi to the Nashes. Hi to Penny.
Brilliant. That's great.
So,
yeah, I was going to say, and that, once everything had sort of collapsed around us, really, you've spoken about your dad, losing your dad so early on, and how terrible that was. It must have been really hard to get yourself motivated. So how did you get yourself motivated? What kept you going?
It was when Dad passed away. It was the biggest, most enormous thing that happened in my life, really. The first one of those things, of course, was almost, believe it or not, 19 years ago, when my dear brother was suddenly taken from us with a brain hemorrhage at the age of 41. But to lose my dad to COVID and not be able to go to see him to say goodbye was the hardest thing ever. But I've come out of that, and I have to carry on in music because he was the person that inspired me to do that. And in the first month and a half, almost 2 months, I didn't really pick the trumpet up at all. It was I just didn't think that I couldn't. I tried, but it just didn't. My head wasn't there, and I started to do a bit of practice, and it still wasn't there. And then I suddenly thought, right, get and record something. Because I'm a terrible practicer, really terrible practicer.
Oh.
So I thought, get and record something. I remembered that I got this piece of music, which I'd actually directed at a concert at the Royal Academy of Music a number of years ago. And it was a piece written by the wonderful Canadian jazz trumpet player, Kenny Wheeler. Kenny, not aside from being one of the great jazz trumpet players in the world, was an amazing composer of all kinds of music. But he wrote this trumpet quartet. And you wouldn't believe that actually you could voice 4 instruments to sound like a full brass ensemble. But I think he really achieved it. And I remembered that this music, I had the score somewhere. I had two movements of this score. So I went through all my music and I found it and I started to record it. And it took me ages, but by doing it, it made me really love music again. It made me really get back into playing the trumpet. It got me back into the sound, the soundscape of music and the sound of the trumpet. It made me get back in love with that again.
Yeah.
And it also helped me to get my recording chops together, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I started to do this thing. It's 3 movements long, but I only had 2 movements. I didn't know there was a 3rd movement. And I don't know whether you've been like this, but during this last year, my sleep has been really weird because I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, and I sort of come downstairs and, anyway, so I woke up one morning having got about halfway through this first movement. And I suddenly thought, now the musicians will understand what I'm talking about here, but the trumpet is in B flat. It's pitched in B flat. So when you write notes for a trumpet, if you write a D, it actually sounds a C on the piano, not a D. So it's 1 tone lower. It sounds. So you have to write everything 1 tone higher. Now, when I got this score, I automatically assumed that the score was written for B flat trumpets. So that's how I was recording it. I didn't have separate parts. I just had a little tiny score. So I'm just reading off this score. And I suddenly thought, you idiot, what happens if it's in concert pitch, the score? It means that you've played everything a tone too low. So the very next day, I sent an email to Nick Smart, who's the head of jazz at the Royal Academy of Music, who's a Kenny Wheeler aficionado. If there's anything you want to know about Kenny Wheeler, you ask Nick Smart. So I just said, Nick, the trumpet quartet, is it is the score in concert or is it in B flat pitch? And he said, it's in concert. Sent me an email about saying it's in concert. And then he put, but you know, in Logic, which is the recording platform you use, he said, you can change the pitch. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. And so I started back at the beginning again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was a really hard thing to put together, but I succeeded. And then I've already mentioned him already, Derek Lawton, to design this video for me. I got in touch with Mark Wheeler, who's Kenny's son, and we decided to put it together as a tribute to Kenny Wheeler, but also to Ryan Anthony, who passed away last summer, who we'll talk a bit about later, and also, of course, my dad. So it's long to play in one hit. So what I'm going to do is, if people will just allow me a bit of indulgence, I'm going to play the first movement, and then if there's time, we'll play a bit later on. We'll play the end of it. Okay. So if you'd like to mute, Deanne, and we'll go with this wonderful quartet. It's called 4 for 1. So
That's
you can see why that kind of got me back into playing again. It's sort of moving me now. I know it's but the harmonies and the way that Kenny wrote that piece. So thanks to him, and also thanks to Nick Smart for introducing me to that piece. And it sort of reawoke my love of music and helped with that whole process of getting over the loss of my dad. So
we had a question actually, which sort of fits in from Craig Mitten, who wants to know about your warm-up techniques and your practice and maintenance routine. So given that you said you weren't brilliant at practicing, tell us a little bit about that. And I guess, have you got any advice for people who might be struggling to get motivated to play again, if that's the case for them?
Okay, so let's start with the kind of routine. I do try and do a routine which reawakes my ideas of blowing the trumpet, and there's a lot of emphasis put on buzzing the lips. Actually, I did that the other night on a stream to a school in Manchester where I was doing a class, and when I buzzed my lips, it shut the whole thing down, and we couldn't get back on the stream, so we had to cancel it. But I won't buzz too loud, but buzzing the lips is something which everybody thinks that's how we play a brass instrument, or we blow a polite raspberry, let's put it like that. But actually we don't do that. We just blow air across our lips into a mouthpiece. You can see that a mouthpiece for non-trumpet players, the hole is actually quite small.
It is.
So people think, oh, you need a lot of puff to play the trumpet.
Yeah,
it's not really that true. It's the actual control of the air. So my routines really are working on how I can control the air. And of course, that starts with a breath in, because not only do we have to control the air coming out, but it's very good to control it coming in, because if we don't, we just take any kind of breath in, then it's not, it might make us tense here. It might make us, like this. And so it's going to sound like this as well. You can hear it in my voice. Whereas if I take a breath in like this, and then I start talking, you can see already I'm going to fall off to sleep in a minute. I feel a lot more relaxed. So it's very important when we practice. When we're performing, we can't always do this, but I've got my trumpeters. I will just show what I'm talking about for the trumpet players, but I'm going to take a breath in, put my mouthpiece on. I'm just going to take what I call the silent breath in. And this is to make sure that the throat is open. And if this breath in is silent, we know that it's a controlled breath in, and we're not going like this, or we're not going like this. Because if I go and play, it sounds like that. Sounds horrible. Okay, but if I take a controlled breath in, maybe over like 6 beats or something, and if I play that note and then I take my mouthpiece off, see what's happening.
Okay.
Not vibrating my lips. So that in itself makes a different sound. So my warm-up routine would be to do something along these lines. So I'm removing the resistance. So I've taken the tuning slide. This is a tuning slide. So all I've got now is that pipe down there. That's called the lead pipe. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow air through the mouthpiece. I'm going to add the lead pipe. Let's see what happens. A sound comes, because what happens is the air which is going into this, there's already air inside this lead pipe, by the way. It's not like a balloon. So we haven't got to blow it up like a car tire or something. So we're just getting the air moving. And the air, of course, doesn't all just travel down there. It goes backwards and forwards. So that's what makes our lips vibrate. We still have to have good muscular form here. We have to, we call this the orbicularis muscle around here. That has to be in good shape. We have to compress here, because when we're playing high, there's a lot of pressure in the mouth. You can imagine.
Yeah.
We don't want all that air to escape. We want to keep the speed, the compression of the air to make it fast to play the higher notes. So that's why the corners need to be good. But I will practice on the lead pipe like that and try and make the lead pipe raw.
Ooh.
And to make the lead pipe raw, you've got to try and get the resonance going, which again is the air within the oral cavity. And if people want to know more about this, drop me a line on my email, which is info@mikelovatt.co.uk. You can also, on that email, you can see if you fancy it. I've got plenty of time on my hands. If you fancy a lesson, I'll let you into all the secrets of what I do.
For a fee, I think.
For a fee. There is a fee involved, but that's how I put some food on the table.
We just had a taster tonight.
Yeah.
Taster lesson, I think.
Those are the kind of things I do in answer to Craig's question. And once I've done that, I'll then play some music. And if there's something within that music which makes me think, oh yeah, that my tonguing's not very good on that, or my production's not very good on that, or my slurring's not very good on that, or my long tones or my sound's not very good, or my vibrato's not very good, then I'll do exercises based on that. But the gauge is the music. Because when I'm working in a normal year, I'll be playing lots of different types of music every day. And so, in that instance, I find out, if I'm doing something at work and I find out, oh, yeah, it doesn't feel too good, that I'll then do some practice on it the next day if I can, if I've got time to do that.
Yeah.
So that's, and down here I've got piles of all the books, the Herbert Clarks, the Schlossbergs, the Arban, the Maggio system, which is what I've used for, high range stuff. But I don't want to get too anaraki for the non-trumpet players out there.
No. You're beginning to lose me now.
Losing the will. I'm just going to show something now, which people might be interested in. It's just a picture. I'm going to put it up now.
Is this the hang on? Well, this was where I was going to mention this.
All right, okay.
Because this is when we bumped into each other in the tube, wasn't it? That was going to be my next.
It was. Oh, perfect. Then we've got the timing right on that. Great.
We seemed to find out what was the station and in the lift that was going down. We both looked at each other like.
Yes, it was at Belsize Park. Because this studio, which you can see here, is Airlinder's studio in Hampstead, and where most of the big orchestral film scores are done. And here, I'll just make it go full screen.
You weren't able to tell me. You said it was a 00 secret, I think.
Yeah. Doing. Well, I think I can divulge.
Which still isn't out, is it?
No. So, in fact, somebody the other day sent me a picture of Daniel Craig, and he'd been aged, so he looked as though he was like 100 or something. And it said, "This is Daniel Craig at the premiere of No Time to Die."
Yeah.
But this is the trumpet section for the Bond movie, and this is actually a year ago, more or less to the day. And so from left to right, we've got Andy Crowley, amazing classical trumpet player, wonderful first trumpet. Myself, and next to me, to my left, is another wonderful player, Tom Rhys-Roberts, and then furthest to my left is the fabulous Tom Walsh, who I'm sure lots of people know Tom for his incredible trumpet playing and writing and everything else. So that was the Bond movie back in February 2020.
Yeah,
so,
we had a couple of questions related to that actually from our good friends Louise and from Nicola.
Oh yes.
So first of all, Louise was asking about how do you get a gig for a film recording? I mean, do you see it advertised in the small ads, or tap you on the shoulder, or
I go down on the streets
pedaling away,
and I cross my legs and I sit on the pavement and I play a few of my favorite film tunes. No, it's normally eventually by word of mouth from the experience that you've done already. So how do you get the experience? Well, normally you need somebody to give you the sort of foot in through the door. And with me, that was mainly down to two people. One was Steve Sidwell and Simon Gardner. Those two guys. And I said two people, but really it's four people. Steve Sidwell and Simon Gardner. And also, I've already mentioned him, the great Derek Watkins, and another amazing trumpet player, all-round trumpet player, John Barclay. And so going back to the time when I was, just leaving the Glenmillockshire UK, and I'd started to do shows in the West End, being in the Glenn Miller band was a platform for me. I used to play solos in there. And I remember one time Steve came in and heard me play, and Simon did as well. And, they put me into a show in the West End, Come and Deptford in the show. So I'd do that. And then there was, I think, maybe Steve recommended me to John Barclay for something like a Raw Variety show. And in those days, the Raw Variety show, you had to play a bit of everything. It was like, 1 minute you're playing for Darcy Bussell with the Royal Ballet, and the next minute you're playing for Tom Jones. So it was that diverse.
Yeah.
And so I did this with John, and John liked me sitting there. So we, he put me forward for stuff. And then the first Bond movie I did came from sitting next to Derek, already mentioned on that Des O'Connor show.
Yeah.
And, one of the days we were doing that show, Derek said, next week we're starting the new Bond movie, which at the time was, I think, Tomorrow Never Dies, but Brosnan film. And I said, it must be wonderful to do. That's all I said. And 2 days later, I got a phone call saying Derek Watkins would like you to come and sit next to him. And he didn't need any help. He was just giving me the experience. So I'm indebted to him for that. And
was that like an internship in a way, though? Did you get paid for that or not?
Oh no, I got paid for it. Yeah, I got paid for it because I was actually playing. I did work. Yeah, but there's what's called a fixer involved, and the fixer will phone up individuals, or also there's things called diary services, which they have different players on their books.
Right.
They don't recommend. They don't act as agents, but they have everything that's you've got in your book. They stem back to the days before mobile phones, when people couldn't be contacted. I mean, in the very old days, there's a street in London called Archer Street, which is just down from the Queen's Theatre, just off of Shaftesbury Avenue. And I'm not kidding you, all the musicians used to go and stand down there on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
And that's where they get booked. All the fixers would turn up there because people didn't all have phones.
No. You couldn't write them a letter, could you? Really?
No. So that's how it worked then. And then, of course, diary services came along. And then, of course, answer machines. People had answer machines at home. The little cassettes on. I had one of those. And then my first mobile phone, Sony Mars bar phone. Remember those? and then, of course, we're all mobile phoned up. So but a lot of people, myself included, stay with the answer service because it does enable a fixer to go to one phone call and say, right, I want Mike Lovatt, I want so-and-so, I want so-and-so, I want so-and-so. Next Friday, 10 till 6.
Yeah.
So it is, or 10 till 5, whatever it is. So that's the way you get booked. So it is, you do one film, you do it well, or you do one recording session, you do it well. You do one recording session, you do it badly.
That's it.
So it's pretty stressful. And what you have to remember is as well that it doesn't matter who you are. There's a load of people just down there waiting. Yeah, and I think especially now when things are starting to happen a bit, there's still the odd session taking place. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the session world and how that goes. We'll see what happens.
There's another question linked to that, which they both ask actually.
Okay.
Are there any films that you've recorded on that are less well known? I don't know if they're going to watch them. I'm quite interested to know. Really, I have to ask them.
Okay, there's one that springs to mind, and it's
our French number.
there's one that springs to mind, and it's actually a fantastic score, and it was orchestrated by somebody we know very well, of course, the wonderful, incredible talent and genius that is John Wilson. And it's a film about Winston Churchill, and it's called The Gathering Storm. Have you seen that?
Ooh, no.
I'm trying to remember who plays Churchill in it. Maybe somebody will be able to tell us. But
yeah,
it's the score for that is, it's like Elgar.
Yeah.
Howard Goodall wrote the music, and John Wilson was the orchestrator for it. And we went to Angel Studios, sadly no longer there. Went to Angel Studios and we recorded the soundtrack to that. And it's, you know, it's classical. It's very orchestral, but it's very beautiful writing. So that's probably one that you won't know about.
Okay,
you know,
take it back.
And if you want to go for something completely different, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Johnny Depp Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that was another score I played on with the great Rod Franks, who was co-principal trumpet of the London Symphony Orchestra, somebody else who's no longer with us. And I did a few of those kind of Tim Burton films with Danny Elfman. The Corpse Bride. That's not that well known a film, but again, it's a good score. And with Hans Zimmer, of course, Hans Zimmer was the composer for the Bond movie, that picture I just showed you, and he wrote the music for a series of cartoon films called Madagascar. And there's a little scene in those where there's some penguins.
Oh, I love the penguins.
Yeah. Well, when it's the penguins, it's me with a few other of my colleagues. So
there was a separate penguins film about the penguins, wasn't there?
Yeah, I did. I don't think I did. No, but
it's about Christmas, and I could.
Are those kind of? I mean, if I got my list out of stuff that I've played on, there's probably quite a few that have never really seen the light of day. We all do stuff like that. You know, in recent years, I mean, I was so lucky to be asked to play on the Avengers Endgame closing credits, and that was the kind of dream come true of trying to emulate Harry James on a big movie. And I think when I recorded it, I didn't realize that the movie was going to be such a massive blockbuster. And thankfully, these days they should really list every single musician on the whole film, but
they should.
I did get a credit for that, so very lucky. So that's
good.
It was a bit better than that on the film, anyway.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about film music,
yes,
I do have something.
I
do have something which I recorded this year, in the last year in lockdown, because we lost one of the great orchestrators and writers in Hollywood, who wrote the music for that film, The Sandpiper, and of course, it had that haunting melody, which I know was one of your favorites, Deanne. And people have seen the clip of me playing this with the John Wilson Orchestra, but this is actually a little thing that I've just put together for kicks at home, playing along. I managed to find a really nice backing track, and I recorded the trumpet part. And this actually, and I wouldn't normally say this, but this was the first take because I was just sort of playing around and decided to record it. And this is what came out. So I'll play it now, if that's okay.
Oh, it certainly is.
There we are. Yeah. You're on mute. Yeah, there you go.
I said it's just beautiful. That really is. I think it's stunning. Absolutely stunning.
That melody is just, you know, one of the great melodies of all time. And actually, there's a couple of people that I need to give a shout out to here. One is Glynis Kester Page, who actually said, I think Albert Finney played Churchill in The Gathering Storm. So I think she's right there.
Okay.
And this is one of her tunes, Shadow of Your Smile. So little dedication to her. Also, the wife of a wonderful guy and an incredible trumpet player that we lost far too early. And I'm referring to a guy called Derek Healy, who was probably one of the most naturally funny people that I've ever come across. And he was a wonderful trumpet player. Again, he was a member of the Trumpets who played at Elstree for Jack Parnell, along with Kenny Baker. And I'm talking about, Derek Healy. And so, Sheila, it's great to see you. And thanks for popping by. And also a wonderful guy who started off life as a French horn player and became one of the top arrangers and conductors of popular recording sets in the 70s and the 80s. And I'm talking about Martin Ford. So hi to Martin as well. And also we've got Louise Carr has popped by. I didn't think she was going to make it.
Louise, thank you.
Yeah. and one other question. Somebody, Nick, I can't read Anne's writing, but Nick Bailey, is it? Yeah. Did you do Sweeney Todd? And I'm sorry, but I didn't do Sweeney Todd. And I'd like to be able to tell you who did, but I'm afraid I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it was recorded in London. I'm not sure. But thanks for those questions, and thanks to all of you for popping by and seeing what we're doing here.
Yeah. I know you said you wouldn't keep going on, but the time is passing.
I know. Well, maybe we should ask people if they've had enough. I've got plenty more here to show them and listen to.
There's lots more exciting things to come, because we're going to talk now in a moment about all the things you've been doing, actually.
Yeah.
But first, I was just going to say that I'm absolutely brokenhearted that I won't get to see you at the Royal Festival Hall next month.
Oh yeah.
Or Kelly for the Gene Kelly.
Yeah, that was something that I've really been looking forward to, and I thought that the concerts this year would happen. And for any of you out there that don't know about this project, I was very fortunate in meeting Gene Kelly's last wife, who's a wonderful lady called Patricia, who does a show all about the Gene Kelly legacy, and it's a fantastic show. She does it. She has clips of the routines, of the dance routines, and clips that Gene Kelly's been in. He's directed. He's choreographed, starred in. Fantastic clips, and she has some props as well from the original movies, which she tours with, and she does it as a stand-up show where they just play the film with the original soundtrack. But she's also developed this wonderful show where the film clips, they've removed the orchestra, and so there's a live orchestra, like a lot of the films they've done these days. Live orchestra with clips from the movies. And I did one of these about 3 years ago with the wonderful Scottish National Orchestra up in Glasgow. If anybody's watching from there, hi, I hope you're all back at work soon. And this concert was great, and she told me this wonderful story which I'd just like to share with you. My hero is a guy called Ewan Razy. You've probably heard me say this before, but he was the principal trumpet of the MGM Studio Symphony Orchestra. And when you watch American in Paris the next time, just remember this story. So picture the scene, it's sunny California, Los Angeles, they're at the MGM soundstage, and there's Gene Kelly in his director's chair, and there's probably, the orchestra they're playing the specially written sequence of American in Paris, not the original version that most symphony orchestras play, but a specially adapted one for this ballet which Gene Kelly choreographed. And they're playing it as that orchestra did, one of the greatest orchestras ever, I think, playing this. And I'm sure that Ewan Razy's first take was absolutely brilliant. And for those of you who know that trumpet solo, da dee dee da dee da 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 da, and so they play this, and Kelly stands up and he says, Mr. Razy, can you play this really sexily? I want you to play it really tender, sexy, And so the red light went on. They did it again. And of course, Razy played the solo, which you've all heard on the film. And Gene Kelly leapt up from his seat, ran to the back of the orchestra and grabbed Ewan Razy and gave him a full-on kiss. So that was a story that Patricia told me, and I can link something to this, which is a few years back when the John Wilson Orchestra got asked to play in Berlin for the Berlin Festival. We got asked by Sir Simon Rattle, and we did a very successful concert. And right at the very end of the concert, Sir Simon got invited to come and play timps, because he started off life as a timpanist, an orchestral timpanist. And so he was on the timps right behind the trumpets, which is quite unusual, really. Just turning around and seeing Sir Simon Rattle there was amazing. But as a party afterwards, you can imagine what happened at the party. We had a fantastic time. In fact, the orchestra drank them dry of champagne, because they had to go out and buy some more champagne. But Sir Simon gave this amazing spiel about the orchestra and how he first heard the orchestra doing the Tom and Jerry thing at the proms, and how he was amazed by it and all that. And then he talked about the concert that evening, said, tonight was no exception. We heard from so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And then he said, and American in Paris, he said, that trumpet solo should have been X-rated. And I thought, yes, I've done it. Yeah. So I hope if Gene Kelly had been listening, that he would have been pleased with it, that it was sexy enough for him. So it's a wonderful thing to play. It's lucky I've had the chance to play that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, hopefully, well, we'll have to see, won't we, what happens next. But
Yeah.
I think it's time to. I've got a couple of quick questions, actually.
Yeah.
Lynn asked about who inspired you in your younger days. She also said, who would you like to accompany or play in if you had the chance?
Okay.
If you were invited.
So straight away, I would have loved to have played for Nelson Riddle in Capitol Studios, recording with Ella Fitzgerald or Frank Sinatra. So that bit's really easy. However, I also would have liked to have been a member of the MGM Studio Symphony Orchestra. If I could have my time again and go back in time, I'd want to.
Now.
She means now.
Not your dream.
Well, okay. Now, well, actually, I'm to play with anybody right now would be great.
Yeah.
I this is, I remember somebody saying this when they've been on tour like for months and months with an orchestra, and they came back home, and they're sitting in front of the telly with the wife, they haven't seen him for months, and they're sort of watching this telly, and the wife goes to the guy, he's a percussionist, I won't mention his name. She said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "What's the matter? You don't look very happy to be home and everything." He said, "I'm just missing the lads." So that's kind of how I am, really. I miss my amazing colleagues that I spend time working with, but not only working is one aspect of it, socializing is another massive part of it. But of course, the part that I really miss is sitting in a band or an orchestra in a studio, whatever, listening to them play. Because you're talking about inspiration. That's where my inspiration comes from. When I sit in the John Wilson Orchestra at the Proms, you could see somebody and hear somebody playing, the banjo, and that can inspire you. But actually hear, somebody playing a clarinet solo or a flute solo or a cello solo, whatever it is, and you just think, wow. And then that makes you play better, And I've discovered one thing. Even though I've done these recordings at home on my own, I've discovered actually when I just play completely on my own, I sound pretty terrible. You need other people around you to sound good. I mean, the great Maurice Murphy always said that, the thing that made him sound so amazing on movies and in the LSO was the fact that he had a fantastic second trumpet player next to him. So
yeah,
I don't think that's entirely true, because Maurice was the most amazing player and had such a wonderful sound all of his own. But I get what he's talking about as well, because I miss those guys that sit around me,
I thought you were going to say the audience, but never mind. We just turn up.
That's the next thing, Of course, I miss the audience. Actually, when we watched that Claire Teal thing, and used that big shot of the Albert Hall with all those people in it, it's like, wow, that sort of gave me a little shiver down my back.
I know. I have to confess, it's my favourite place in London, and I mean, it's not great acoustically, but just to be there and be in there, I think once I know when I get back to it, I will need tissues because I shall be quite emotional.
Yeah.
Let's think about. I've got one more quick question. Ruth Green asked about Mantovani, the Mantovani Orchestra, and she'd seen some clips on YouTube. Have you recorded with the Mantovani Orchestra? Yeah,
there's no actual CD recordings or anything like that. Although I think there's a DVD available somewhere. It was an orchestra which is got together by an enthusiast down on the south coast near Bournemouth, and he got in touch with me and said he was putting this orchestra together. He had the original parts. In fact, the parts, in the days when, Mantovani was mainly a recording orchestra for Decca. And so, you know, in those days, you could do a recording studio, and if you smoked, you could have a cigarette whilst you're working. You know, so trumpet players famously used to put a cigarette in the third valve slide, like there or somewhere, or they'd stick it on the music stand. And of course, if it was a long take and the cigarette would start burning down, it'd start to singe the edge of the, you know, before we'd know it, the fire brigade would be there. No, but I've seen a lot of music which I've played off from the sort of 50s and 60s, original parts, apart from them being yellow, they're also a bit tinged with brown and singed around the edges. Yes. So this guy down in did actually have the original parts, and some of them had those fag marks on them. But it was quite an enjoyable gig, and it's maybe 3 or 4 times, and they normally film it because I think the guy who got it together, that was his job. He worked for some film company, so he'd always have video cameras there and that kind of stuff. And I actually got asked to play some of the big sort of sweet trumpet solos. So if anybody's interested in that stuff, it's called the Magic of Mantovani. If you put that on into YouTube, put my name in as well, you'll get something come up. Some of the recordings are better than others, bearing in mind it was live. Not just my performance, but everybody else's. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk now about what you've been up to and the exciting things you've been doing, because well, shall I start with the question from Lee Mackey saying, would you think about doing something with Matt Skelton? That might lead us into a conversation now, might it not?
Yes, it will lead us into a conversation. It's funny you should mention that, because actually,
or was
right,
that
no, it's right at this very moment. I've actually prepared something which was kind of top secret until tonight. But if I can find this thing on here, yeah, I've started to put together a project, and I've been meaning to do this for years. I've done it with student ensembles, and it's based upon the lines of Billy May's Big Fat Brass. And Billy May's Big Fat Brass was born out of a session which happened in 1958, an album which came out in 1958, and of that name, Billy May's Big Fat Brass. It involved all the top studio players in Hollywood. It was like a big band, but with no saxes, and it had French horns instead. So a few years back, I got some transcriptions of the Billy May Big Fat Brass music, and was looking for some more music to add to make a proper concert out of. So I enlisted Colin Skinner to come up with some new arrangements. And one of the many things which he came up with was this suite of tunes from Carmen. And it is just unbelievable. I mean, that guy is such a talent. But he's put this thing together, and like I say, I've performed it in many places, mainly with students, but we did do one professional performance, which was in Sweden with the Swedish Radio Symphony, Stockholm Radio Symphony Orchestra, which the fabulous Chris Parks, French horn of the John Wilson Orchestra, is the principal horn of. And I got invited out there to direct the ensemble, and they loved it. We did a week, and then we did a concert at the end of the week, which is broadcast. And then the following year, I got asked back, and we actually, in the bag, we have a whole album recorded. We treated it like a recording session. We did the whole week, and fantastic lead trumpet player they got in called Patrick Scoe, or Patrick Wood, if you want to give him his English name. Great lead trumpet player from Stockholm. He's playing lead trumpet on it. I'm playing solos and all the rest of it. So it was a great thing. But at the moment, because of what things are happening, it doesn't look like that recording is going to see the light of day for maybe not ever, but maybe for a long time. So I decided that I would try and put it together virtually here. So I got somebody to help me with a click track, which is like the kind of beat thing, because somebody's got to go down first, and we need something to tune to. So I enlisted the talents of Lawrence Unglis, wonderful bass player, and bless him, he put this bass part down, which must have been horrendous. You just going dum 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 on your own. There's nothing else going on. But he sent it to me, and so the next stage is to put some drums on it. And you know, who else could I get to put drums on it rather than Matt Skelton? So I said to Matt, you know, do you mind just playing along with the bass? He said, well, it'd be good if there was something else playing to get the vibe. And I said, well, okay, I'm not going to record all the trumpets for the actual track when we get it out, but I'll record all trumpets for now. So you got something to play with.
Yeah.
So the last couple of days, I've spent the last sort of 12 hours, maybe more than that, putting together 6 trumpet parts. So eventually it's going to have 4 trombones, 2 tubas, 6 French horns, the rest of the rhythm section, harp, tune percussion, and we'll be putting a video together and it'll go out on YouTube. But my plans are to try and get it as an ensemble, which we'll be able to give a live concert. So that's the plan. But this is a world premiere, and this is just me with the bass. So 6 of me and the bass. It's just a little clip you might recognize. Any of you out there that have heard the album First Brass, which involved Derek Watkins and an amazing jazz trumpet player called Alan Baczynski, will know that Alan's playing and compositions on that album are fantastic. And sadly, he passed away in November 2020. He'd been ill for some time, but I really liked Alan. He was a fantastic player and a lovely guy. Married to Marion Camphert, the daughter of Bert Camphert, and I'd known them for a number of years. I worked for them in London, and I was very sad to hear of his passing. And Marion actually asked me to write a sort of little thing about him, and I'll just read it out now because we're not going to have the clip. I actually recorded with the amazing Andy Wood on trombones and tubas, and I did all the trumpets and flugels, and we did a piece of Alan's called October Sunshine, which I was going to play for you, but that's private as well. So I'll put something out on Facebook when eventually that goes onto YouTube, so you'll be able to enjoy it on there. But I was saddened to hear of the passing of the brilliantly talented Danish jazz trumpeter and flugelhorn player Alan Baczynski, also a renowned composer, arranger, conductor, producer, and record label owner. Alan was born in Copenhagen, came from a musical family. His father was a professional bassoonist, and he began to play trumpet aged 11. And at 14, he went on to study at the Royal Danish Conservatory. In 1956, he joined the Glindman Big Band and stayed with that until 1959. And at that time, he began performing as a jazz trumpet soloist whenever they were visiting American musicians in town. He played alongside jazz legends such as Oscar Pettiford, Stan Getz, Dexter Gordon, Lee Konitz, Ben Webster, Kenny Dorham, amongst many others. He went on to study at the Manhattan School of Music, and the following year began playing with a Danish radio big band. In 1985, he relocated to Hamburg, where he began to work and record with Peter Herbolzheimer and the European Trumpet Summit, in addition to his own ensembles. It was there that he founded his own label, MA Music, with his sister and Marion Camford in 1987. He also played on, co-produced and composed the groundbreaking first brass album, which featured Derek Watkins, Bart Van Leer and Eric Van Leer. I was lucky enough to meet Alan and his wife, Marion Camford, in the early 90s and worked with them several projects in London until he retired. He was a special gifted musician, a wonderful trumpet player, great composer, and the nicest guy in the world. He had the ability to turn a phrase with his beautiful sound, inventive melodic improvisation, and cool swinging sound. His warm personality shone through everything he did, and he will be sorely missed. So that was my little tribute to Alan. I'm really sorry I can't play you this.
Yeah.
But I've got something else which I can play, actually.
Go on then.
Which is something which has come about in lockdown. Earlier on, we had Ben Beavis, who's a fabulous trumpet player, and he's actually going to appear in this alongside me and Andy Greenwood and also wonderful Mark Upton. And this is something which people probably haven't really heard me do much of, a different style of music. This is a medley of tunes that are associated with Gloria Estefan. So enjoy. I hope everybody enjoyed that. You can see me dancing. Actually, I got a little thing from my sister. She said, you know, she was up on her feet dancing, and as you saw, so was I. One little shout out from that clip. There's a wonderful drummer on there called Max Mills, and I know he's watching. And Max has had a really tough time recently. He's been in hospital, had an operation and what have you. And so, Max, we wish you well and quick recovery from that. And I want to see you back behind the tubs before too long. And you sound fabulous on that video, as does everybody else.
Oh, yeah, great fun for Friday night. Let's talk about the much promised CD.
Yes.
Now, you asked a while ago on the Trumpet page, what would people like to hear? Then there's been various things that people have said, but quite a few people have talked about the standards, and of course that's something that I associate you with through the John Wilson Orchestra and the great stuff you played. But there's lots of other music out there. So what's your thoughts at the moment? You talked about being backed by an orchestra.
Yes.
So do tell us what your thinking is.
Well, this goes back really to my childhood, and I mentioned about Kenny Baker and playing along to a record which he did called the Phase 4 World of Kenny Baker. Phase 4 was a subsidiary of Decca Records, and it was actually a compilation album, but most of the tracks on there were arranged by the great Roland Shaw, and wonderful orchestral writing on there. And right back to those days, I've always thought I'd love to do an album like that, just like an Abbey Road 2 with a great big orchestra. Now, Abbey Road 2 and a great big orchestra equals V lots of money, and COVID and the last year equals not very much money at all. Yeah. So it's trying to work out how I'm not going to do it unless I can do it properly. Now, if there's anybody out there that there's actually something that people always say, if you want to, if you're a trumpet player and how do you become a millionaire? You start off with 100 million. And,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it's if there's anybody out there that is a millionaire that wants to invest some money in something which is going to be uplifting and joyful and will kind of help to bring us out of this time that we've been in for the last 12 months. I would gratefully receive anything. I want to
funding.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that I want to try and do.
It's quite popular nowadays.
It is, yes. But again, I'll say it again. I'm a trumpet player, not a sort of business, sort of crowdfunding kind of raising money person. But I'll have to be, I suppose. But if there's anybody out there that thinks, oh yeah, okay, I'd like to help Mike with this, please let me know. Again, send me an email, info@mikelovatt.co.uk, and hopefully we'll get something done. So I've got some great ideas, got some great arrangers lined up. I've got a great idea of the orchestra that I'd like to have lined up. And, I've got arrangers in Los Angeles lined up. I've got wonderful Andrew Cotty, of course, who I work with Seth MacFarlane a lot. And there's going to be a few surprise guests there lined up as well.
Would one be any chance?
Well, I shall leave you to wonder that. But we've had conversations about it. And
you've done working with him, haven't you? So
yes. Yeah, in fact, there's not really time now. I thought there might be, but
yeah, I know. We've got to talk about.
There's quite a few tracks on YouTube which we've recorded virtually. So I get sent a bass, drums, piano parts to Pot and End, and I send them. I record the lead trumpet part and I send it back to LA. Pot and End to LA. There you go, and and then the fabulous musicians in LA add their parts, and a wonderful engineer called Rich Breen puts it all together, records Seth MacFarlane's voice, and we've done some tracks, duet tracks with Liz Gillies. Anybody know Liz Gillies? Wonderful actress, and I think a great singer. I think her and Seth together sound incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I am conscious of the time, and we've just been chatting away. Like, there's so much more we could talk about.
I hope people are not bored.
No, well, do we know how many people are still on? I mean, is there any more than just us?
There's 44 people on. So
Well, that's good then.
That's pretty good.
Thank you so much, 44
Thank
people.
you for watching, and I hope you found it interesting. You know, we kind of start off with these things wondering what we're going to talk about from what we've done before, but you know what I'm like. I can talk for hours on.
You did promise me you weren't going to interrupt, but
yeah, absolutely.
Before we go, I just wanted to float something with our audience, which is that, you know, a lot of people nowadays working online. You've talked about recording online. It doesn't fail to amaze me how you can get people recording around the world, and it just sounds so fabulous. People are obviously doing concerts and things online, doing different streaming. So what about doing a private concert for you know, for some of us, rather than I mean, I've seen loads of things live streamed, and thoroughly enjoyed them, but we could, you know, do you think if people were interested, for a small fee, have a private concert with Mike? How about that?
Yeah, my wife and I, Anne, we've done a few private Zoom concerts for one of our neighbours here in Potton End, and she gets some people together, and they pay a small fee, and then we do a concert right from the music room here, and they've been pretty successful, and people have enjoyed them. And for us, we see lots of faces on a screen, you know, silently, because they're all muted, clapping like this, and it's you know, it's hard work to try and get the sound over and to try and make it sound something that's good, you know. Again, Zoom's not brilliant for that, but we can do concerts like that, and if there is an appetite for it, then I'd love to do something like that. Yeah,
maybe we could sort of do some sort of poll or something on the Facebook page, if I can work that out, or some way to find out if you're interested, because I was fortunate enough to be at one of those private concerts, and it was just superb. It really was.
Oh, great! Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay, so before we close, we're going to have one more piece of music before we come back to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It's been a particularly challenging year for everybody in so many different ways. Everyone's had to cope with different things. But there's one song that I think really sort of sums up. I'm desperate to hear when we can come out of lockdown a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know,
I'm just wondering where it's gone to in my feed. That's all.
After that big build up.
After that big, no, you just carry on talking. I can retrieve it.
I mean, I think that you know, so you know, we're waiting. I'm waiting desperately, personally, to know on Monday what's going to happen with the lockdown plan and coming out of it in England. And it does still feel like live music's going to be a long, long way away.
Yes.
But we've got to have some hope.
We have, yes, and that does lead us into a nice link.
Let's have a little bit of this.
I'm just getting it all the technical stuff together now, because it wasn't on my feed. So I was
there. I'll keep talking then.
You keep talking, yeah, keep talking.
I mean, you know, anyone who's got the album 56 Degrees North, I'm sure that, you know, so many of us have at least one copy. And it's on there, and it's just the most beautiful song. And of course, it's got a different meaning as well, hasn't it? The Cancer Blows.
It has, yes. This is something which I put together. Actually, originally the music came from the recording of my album, and the inspiration for this music was actually a guy called Ryan Anthony, who contracted. He got cancer, and he was, you know, for 8 years keeping himself going with his faith and his love of music. And this piece became associated with him and the charity which he got together called Cancer Blows. And I played it first of all in Scotland at a youth band concert, and I was knocked out with this piece. And I played it to Anne, and she thought exactly the same. And I thought, right, it's got to go on the album. So I asked two of my favourite classical trumpet players, Philip Cobb, who was the principal trumpet at the LSO, and also Gareth Small was the principal trumpet of the Halley Orchestra in Manchester. And we recorded it with, of course, the wonderful Foden's band. And I asked the composer, Pete Meakin, if I could record it, and he gave me his blessing. So it's a wonderful piece. And we'll just put it on now, and then we'll come back and say goodbye. There we are. It's a moving piece of music. I hope everybody enjoyed that.
It is. It really is. It is, and we all need some hope at the moment. You know, it's been really hard, this second lockdown, and we just need to have some hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to look forward to the better times.
Absolutely. If anybody wants to listen to that again, that video is available on YouTube, as all the things are that we've watched tonight and listened to. And if anybody still hasn't got a copy of the album, again, that's available on my website, mikelovatt.co.uk. And there's a little PayPal button. Click on there, and I send the videos out.
You can even have it personally signed, can't
It'll
you?
be signed. It'll be, if you do it on there, it'll be signed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe we've.
I can't believe. I hope everybody's been okay with this. Just one other person I'd like to say hello to, and we've said hello to her before, but she's in New York, the daughter of one of the greatest trumpet players ever, Bernie Glow, and I'm talking about Heidi Glow. And we just say happy birthday to Bernie Glow for a couple of weeks ago.
Okay,
so, it's nice to see you, Heidi.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. I mean, thanks everybody for tuning in, for sticking with us, if you're still there. We've had a good time anyway, haven't we?
We've had a lovely time. It's been really nice looking back through these things and, preparing this as well. I'm sorry those other things didn't work, but I'll get them to work for next time.
I was going to say we can't leave it 5 months next time. We've got to it's gone crazy, isn't it, at the time? But we'll definitely do something again, and talk about. And there was a few questions we couldn't get round to, but we'll pick those up next time. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for all your support still. Keep supporting Mike, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Deanne. Thanks to all of you for watching. And like Deanne says, thanks for all your support. It means a great deal to me. Thanks.
To me. Yeah.
Bye.